Five Nights at Freddy's is a series that needs no introduction. Whether you're scrolling on YouTube or at your average Walmart, there's at least some instance where you've heard of it. It's a game series that has a lot of notoriety, both good and bad depending on who you ask. You got those fans who are making incredible fan games or just straight up cinema, and then you have literal children who see a fuzzy bear and go, yeah, that's pretty cool. Then you have I'm not even going to talk about that. But no matter how you feel, you can't deny its crazy impact on the internet or YouTube, paving the way for famous creators and leaving a 10-year legacy with, after years of anticipation, finally hitting the silver screen. And while its reception was mixed, or more so split between critics and fans, it's pretty insane it all came from one dude. And with the second movie on the rise, still stuck in the trenches of pre-production, I said screw it. I'll do it myself. Now, do I have the credentials to do such a thing? No. The most I've done is make a rewrite of the first movie because of personal gripes, but I'm not a professional writer or anything special, just a dude with a knack for horror. And rather than being an idiot who makes a 30-minute video with an ASMR voice because they thought it would sound cool, I'm simply just stating general plot points and splitting them into 3 acts because simplicity. Where I'll try and be respectful towards the actual development of the movie by keeping the same cast and sticking to the general premise of FNaF 2 and its movie universe. If I end up getting lore wrong, I don't know, cry about it. Like any other horror movie, it opens up with a hook. In this case, you have a little blonde girl running for her life in a dilapidated pizzeria, being chased by everyone's favorite child killer, William Afton, where he catches up to her and pins her down, stabbing her with a syringe that starts to fill with a strange liquid. It turns out that the girl is actually Chica, who's trying to fight back as Spring Chef starts dismantling her, basically turning her into Withered Chica. AKA, I'm getting away with violence, cause you can't hurt an actual child but an animatronic? Pfft, that's free game. Her eyes flicker and go dark as Afton stands over her, but in the distance, the clunking sounds of another animatronic echo ominously as Afton's attention is redirected. Anyways, you get your fun little 8-bit title sequence to jam out to, showing Afton dismantling the rest of the animatronics. Cut to Mike Schmidt, our weird protagonist from the first movie, struggling to adjust to his normal life after, almost dying, like, a few times. But besides his personal problems and a plethora of questions that haven't been really answered, he's fine. Who really cares about mental health anyway? Anyhow, he frequently visits the vegetable that is Vanessa, who's still in a coma after the first movie, confiding in her because it's hard to relate to others after the, almost dying stuff. But at the very least, Abby's doing pretty good, and her and Mike's bond has grown a lot, so things aren't too bad. Although the not-so-great part about all this is that the town is in a bit of a hysteria over the disappearance of Steve Raglan, aka Afton's alter ego. Oh, and Mike's aunt, but who really cares about her? But because of this, Mike is typically harassed by police or media, but he can't really say a ton, or, he'll be spending the night in Arkham Asylum. Unfortunately, Mike can't escape his past, where he has vivid nightmares of the pizzeria, where Golden Freddy attempts to communicate something to him, but all he hears is static. However, on one of these nights, aka when the plot actually starts to happen, he's jolted awake by a strange noise outside his window, where he gets out of bed to investigate. Peering outside is, lo and behold, the security puppet, which originally freaks Mike out, but it turns out the puppet is actually pretty chill, where it explains to Mike that his estranged father wants to see him, which catches Mike off guard cause his dad kinda left for milk and then just never showed up again. So yeah, not runner-up for Father of the Year. Mike, obviously being upset by all this, accidentally wakes up Abby, who then joins their conversation, where despite Mike's anger, he agrees to meet his father after Abby persuades him since she's curious about her dad because, as I said, he left and stuff. The three drive to a set of coordinates given to them by the puppet, and while Abby helps Mike with directions, she asks him about their father, which is obviously a touchy subject because of the whole abandonment thing. The group eventually arrives at a dilapidated Fazbear's location that mirrors the FNaF 2 layout, with your standard creepy atmosphere with police tape and old birthday stuff. They hear the sound of a bottle breaking, and following the sound, they find Henry Schmidt, disheveled and surrounded by robotic mechanisms and empty bottles. So before you say it, yes, I know, in the games, Henry or Henry Emily is very different. I don't care. Basically, this reunion is tense cause duh. Henry tries to greet his kids, but Mike bats him away and asks where he's been for the past decade. Henry explains that he left because he felt like his kids would be better off without him, which leads to a heated discussion between the two of them over parental responsibility and how Henry left him as a teenager, where these two are a few words away from throwing hands with one another with the amount of shade being thrown. Mike is beyond unconvinced of his father and storms off, where Abby asks Mike if he wants to leave, but he's pretty conflicted over the whole thing. Henry comes back out and asks if they've seen his animatronics, which sparks Abby's interest interest as he brings the whole room to life, revealing his toy animatronics that leave her mesmerized as they start to perform on stage. While she's distracted, Henry apologizes for not being there to Mike and his sister in the past, and wants to make it up to him now. Henry invites them to stay a while, which Mike ultimately accepts, but not without feeling uneasy about the animatronics on stage. Mike wakes up early and wanders around the establishment, running into Toy Freddy, which scares him half to death as he realizes the animatronics can roam freely. He continues exploring until he comes across a room covered with police tape, where he then gets startled by Henry, being up and early as the senior citizen he is alongside the puppet. Mike questions him about the literal crime scene on full display in front of him, where it turns out it used to be Toy Foxy's stage, but after an incident involving the animatronic attacking a security guard, Jeremy Fitzgerald, led to the place's closure. Now, hear me out, I think it would be really funny if Jeremy was Markiplier. Like, it's a really quick cameo while Henry is giving exposition on some of Freddy's history, but I think it would be really funny considering the fact it's the bite of 87. Obviously, somebody getting their frontal lobe nommed on is not great. Some could even say it's alarming, but Henry's like, yeah, unfortunate. Anyways, Mike continues to question him on Freddy's and its history, as well as the puppet, where the puppet is controlled through an AI program that is different from the rest of the toy animatronics. Henry also tells him about Fredbear's Family Diner, which he had started with William Afton, which sets off all the alarms in Mike's brain, causing him to relate everything he found out about the first movie revolving around Afton. All of this makes Henry very distraught, causing him to recede into his workshop. Mike, being the ever-aware protagonist that he is, feels like there's more than meets the eye, and gets the uncomfortable feeling that they're being watched during this conversation, and not in the good way, more so the I'm in danger way. But he gets distracted by Abby and kind of forgets about it. Unable to get some shut-eye later that night, Mike gets up to grab his tape player to help him sleep, where he notices his dad working at some ungodly hours in the morning in his workshop. Mike asks the security puppet about what his dad even does in there, and he's hit with, yeah, he tinkers, and that's all he really gets. Finally being able to sleep thanks to the soothing sounds of Mother Nature herself, Mike finds himself back at Freddy's, where Golden Freddy motions to something down a hallway, where he sees Afton injecting himself with a syringe from earlier, where his jittery motions become stable and more relaxed. Afton seems to perk up and turn towards Mike's direction, but his dream ends before he sees anything else. Mike, properly freaked out and also incredibly suspicious of his father, does some snooping and sneaks into his father's office to find an answer or two. He finds the place covered with a ton of machinery, some of which is very disturbing and Saw-esque, aka it looks like a death trap. However, he finds papers referencing something called remnant, or the human soul and its various uses, as well as a metal exoskeleton of a woman and a small boy, which sends a ton of red flags through Mike's mind where he's like, yeah, it's time to go. But while trying to run out, Henry walks in. Welp, GG. The two confront each other, where Mike learns that Henry has been trying to bring back his mom and Garrett through experimentation with remnant, where Henry is taking fractions of the human soul, specifically his wife's soul, after she committed self-delete, and putting them into the toy animatronics to serve as his guinea pigs for set experiments in the hopes of being able to put them into new bodies. Which to any cognitive person sounds, insane. Learning all this, understandably, sends Mike into a fit of rage and disgust, making him storm off and tell Abby to come with him because they are never coming back here. Abby warily agrees, but tells Mike that he's scaring her right now as the two leave. Not really knowing where they're going, but Mike figures that anything is better than here. The security puppet alerts Henry that his kids have left, laying down the Turing test till Henry decides to stop being depressed and to make it up to his kids properly. Abby keeps asking Mike why they left and what's going on, where Mike tries to explain to her in the most kid-friendly way possible that their father ain't that great and is doing some pretty nefarious stuff, which leads Abby to ask more and more questions which she doesn't know the answer to. Ultimately, Abby accidentally strikes a nerve as he realizes he's no better than his father. He almost gave up his sister in the last movie just so he can be with his brother again. He's no better. Well, I mean he is, cause he ain't doing some weird cybernetic Frankenstein experimental stuff, but that's beside the point. Mike decides to drive back to the pizzeria, letting Abby go back inside, but is unsure if he's ready to go back in or not. However, to his surprise, Henry comes out and greets him, coming clean with everything he's done. Henry tried starting up a new location after Garrett was kidnapped to work away the grief, to where he neglected his family and his wife's mental health until her eventual, sewer slide. This further boosted his depression, and after the bite of 87, he didn't want to hurt his family anymore, seeing himself as the problem and isolating himself, where he blames himself for what happened to his family for not being able to stand up towards Afton after being suspicious of his nefarious actions, but ultimately doing nothing. But with Afton gone, he believed he could finally move on and be with his family again. Mike in turn shares his own personal guilt, almost selling Abby off and almost getting her killed. All he wanted was his family to be back together again, to the point he fell into obsession, where he'd be willing to do anything just to achieve his dream. Even now he misses Garrett, but he still has Abby in his life, and that's more than enough for him. With that conversation done and dusted, Mike checks on Abby and sees she's fallen asleep waiting for him, where he carries her to bed and tucks her in. Henry, watching from a distance, reflects on Mike's love and care for his sister. While returning to his workshop, he stares at the husk of machinery, mimicking his wife and son. A wave of memories consume him as he thinks back to his family, being some of the best moments in his life. And with these thoughts, he destroys his creations, wrecking the workshop till nothing tangible is left. Leaving his workshop, he briefly stops to look at the toy animatronics on stage before walking away to finally be with his family. Abby wakes up during the night to go to the bathroom and sees what looks like the 4 other children from the previous movie running around the pizzeria towards the stage, but when she goes to investigate, she finds nothing but an empty syringe. Anyways, after finally settling things, Mike and Henry seem to be on way better terms, as Henry makes them breakfast, where they eat together as a family for the first time, spending the day together with the animatronics, but Mike feels a sense of uneasiness, as they always seem to be transfixed on Henry. All in all though, things seem to be going pretty well for the Schmidt family for once in their lives, where Mike appreciates Henry for finally spending time with them, as he goes to bed with a semi-eased mind. Mike finds himself back at Freddy's, where Golden Freddy appears as he always does, but this time Mike can actually hear him. Why, you might ask? Cause plot. Where Fredbear is able to break through and warn Mike about Afton and what he's been doing to the other kids and their souls, but the two of them get cut off as Afton suddenly appears in Mike's dream. Golden Freddy vanishes as Mike finds himself in a dark void alone with Springtrap. Mike tries to confront him on what he did, but Afton just signals him to be quiet, as us, the audience, start seeing the toy animatronics move off their stage toward the Schmidt family. A sudden crash brings Mike back into reality as Toy Bonnie lunges at him. Now, this is where the fun begins, because from here, it's basically a free-for-all between the humans and the animatronics, as the toy animatronics, minus the puppet, are trying to kill them on Afton's orders, and, well, the humans are trying to survive. Where you get your fun action, jump scares, chases, and a bunch of other fun horror elements with the toy animatronics, including Endo and Henry's termination bots, which Henry had debated on using on himself but couldn't bring himself to do it. I decided not to write a ton here because it's not super story relevant besides the symbolism of Henry finally facing his past mistakes physically. Just know that the action would be a lot better than the first movie and implement all the mechanics from FNaF 2 in some way. It's just you can free roam and use weapons to fight back. After 6 hours, Henry is able to temporarily shut down the animatronics endoskeletons, allowing them some time to breathe. At this point, Balloon Boy and JJ would have been destroyed because I hate those annoying pieces of garbage. But unfortunately, the puppet ain't doing too hot. With some downtime, Mike tells Henry that he's been seeing Afton in his dreams and thinks he plays some role in all this. Henry, recognizing the severity of the situation, lets Mike rest as he attempts to extract the remnant from the animatronics, believing Afton is manipulating their remnant in the suits somehow. However, while trying to extract Toy Bonnie's remnant, Afton suddenly starts speaking through Bonnie, letting Henry know he's coming. Henry, obviously terrified by all this, tries to extract all the remnant as fast as possible, but finds his equipment missing and realizes he's done goofed up. The animatronics start to power back up and Henry frantically closes off the main area, buying additional time for his family and an opportunity to prepare for Afton. Team Schmidt? I don't really know what else to call them, but I guess that's their name now. Get an opportunity to rest until a fun montage of them getting ready for battle as the animatronics bang at the main area trying to break it down. Unfortunately, the only way out is either the employee entrance or the main entrance, which is where all the animatronics are. So yeah, that's a bit of a problem. At dusk, the animatronics break in through the vent system and chaos ensues. Mike, Abby, and the security puppet face off against the remaining animatronics, while Henry faces his termination bot and comes to terms with his own life choices. Once more, you get a lot of horror, action, etc., you know, all that good stuff. Which I could specify, but it's fine. Just picture it in your head or something. I don't know. While Mike, Abby, and the puppet seem to be wrapping things up, Afton shows up for the big fight, which I swear I'm not recycling the same elements from the first movie. It just makes sense to fight him, you know? Anyways, Afton gets in a confrontation with Mike, where Mike, understandably, is losing. Like, really badly. As in, he's almost unalived. while the puppet and Abby are kinda swatted away because what's a child and a ragdoll gonna do against a 6-foot guy in a metal suit? However, right when Afton is about to deliver the final blow on Mike, Abby steps in and takes the hit. Did I just kill a child? Yes. Was it necessary? Yes. Mike stuns Afton with a metal pipe to the back of the head and runs over to Abby, who's weakly calling out for him. Mike lets her know that he's here and that it's all gonna be okay, but before Mike can turn around and finish the fight, Afton knocks him out and drags him along to use as a prize to gloat to Henry. The security puppet crawls over to Abby's body and keeps her company as the light slowly fades from her eyes. Henry, after beating his demon/determination bot, he starts heading towards the exit to help his family, where Afton shows up and throws Mike in front of Henry. The two have a standoff where Henry confronts Afton with his mistakes and regrets, trying to distract Afton long enough so Mike can recover and escape. William reveals that he's been jealous of Henry due to his own personal misery and tried to bring him down to his level. Henry had everything Afton envied after the loss of his son at Fredbear's, where for pettiness sake he resorted to child kidnapping and murder, and then he got all pissy when he didn't get the opportunity to really make Henry suffer. But after Henry disappeared, Afton entered a state of meaninglessness because he never truly got to be even with him, cause in his mind he's justified since the world lashed out on him. I don't know what you expect. Man is psychotic and has murdered multiple children. He's not exactly a stand-up dude. Anyways, the two fight one another, and while Henry gets a few good hits in, he ultimately gets seriously injured. Once again, 6-foot metal rabbit man with a knife. But at the very least, it gives Mike enough time to run out. Afton, figuring Henry's a lost cause, chases after Mike, where he's able to catch up and grab him. While being dangled up, Mike is able to grab a loose electrical wire and zap Afton with it. A twitching Afton causes more electrical wires to come loose, which strike the wallpaper and make it catch a blaze. Mike, now free, makes a mad dash to grab Abby, but sees that she's gone and calls out for her. But Afton, now recovering, starts heading towards Mike as the location is crumbling all around them. With no choice, Mike runs to the exit as Freddy's burns, with Afton still tailing him. He runs out into the moonlit evening, where turning around, he sees Afton's silhouette shrouded in fire. But before Afton can pursue him, Mike sees his injured father throw something at Afton, luring him back into its depths. Mike tries to run back in to help his father, but is stopped by the puppet, who croaks out Mike's name in Abby's voice, weakly begging him to stop and telling him that they have to go. Mike regretfully gets into his car with the puppet and drives off, leaving his father to his own fate. Henry uses whatever strength he has left to stall Afton in his pursuit, but Afton seems to accept their fate and grabs Henry by the neck, staring at his old friend and business partner as his fingers tighten around his throat, reveling in the joy of his victory. But Henry, rather than panicking or begging, seems to be at peace, as he asks Afton if he remembers when they first started Fredbear's and how they were dirt broke, but they somehow made the most of it. Afton for once seems to lose some of his composure as Henry goes on, saying that he used to think Afton as a great man and how he felt a sense of honor working alongside him. But now they're both sinners, justifying their immoral acts and either wallowing in a pit of personal failures or blaming others for their own transgressions. But no matter what, nothing can change what Afton has done to him or the lives he's taken, where only the darkest pits of hell await him. The location burns as the toy animatronics melt and contort as everything blackens and collapses, as Afton holds Henry by the throat as the building caves in. Mike, clearly distraught and muttering to himself that he has to go back or do something, aka having a mental breakdown, which is, understandable. The puppet places an appendage on Mike's hand and tells him it's all gonna be okay, and just repeats it to him over and over again as he drives off into the sunset in tears. In the remains of the pizzeria, Afton gets up and stands over the mountains of ash with Henry's glasses in his hands, standing tall amongst the ashes of his war, victorious, as he starts walking toward the fiery sunrise. And that's a wrap! Yes, depressing, I know, I'm mentally okay, I swear. But like any cinematic universe, you need an end credit to tease the sequel, and in this case, break away from the sheer depression this provided and give people some hope. After the credits roll, we see the souls of the animatronics returning to their withered forms and regaining life as Golden Freddy monitors them, where Mike and the puppet enter the disheveled pizzeria and greet them, as we also cut to Vanessa's hospital room, now empty. Okay, now that's a wrap. And sure, it's not exactly what someone calls cinema, Looking at you, Scorsese. But like, I'm not trying to make a perfect movie. Sure, I want it to be semi-thought-provoking or provide a message, in this case overcoming trauma, depression, loss, and diving into the bond between family. But at the end of the day, I also just want to sit down and enjoy a movie, especially one based off a video game series that I was obsessed with as a child. Like, the fact of talking about it even now actually says a lot of things now that I think about it. And working on this makes me realize how difficult it is to adapt a game series like this into a film format. And if anything, it makes me curious and kind of excited to see what direction Scott wants to go. There's so many ways to interpret Five Nights at Freddy's, but it doesn't stop a shared community that is passionate about this series from every age group from just taking some time and enjoying a movie. Being able to just sit down and have a blast and relive the nostalgia, theories, and everything else that makes something like this so special for moviegoers and fans alike. So whatever happens in the sequel, it's sure to be one heck of a ride that I can't wait to go on. If you made it this far, please like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed the kind of content I'm making. This is Balthazar, signing off.